Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Golden Gloves Chat Show. This week I've got a very, very special guest. As you can see, he's heavy, shiny, and next to me, James Bullet Dalton. What a brilliant Springbok rugby player, legendary. James, you and I have been friends for flipping ever and a day. We're more like family than friends. Firstly, congratulations on your birthday last week, 51 years young.
Oh,
Congrats.
Thank you, Brian.
You're looking good, you still work out.
Brian, indeed, 51. So when I turned 50, the whole house was in uproar and excitement about my birthday.
Okay.
And I burst into tears. And my daughter came to me and she said, "Dad, are you okay? What's wrong?" I said, "I'm 50.
Well, listen, it gets worse. You get to 60 eventually.
But no, I'm indeed honoured and thank you for having me as a guest.
No, pleasure. As I say, you look fantastic. Living in Cape Town now. Been in Cape Town for about 11 years now.
Yeah, Cape Town, good place to be, good quality of life, especially for the kids.
Yeah.
Lots of quantity of and quality of life there. So really enjoying it. Very different to Johannesburg, but Johannesburg is where it all began for me. I mean,
sure.
You and I were the other day at Ellis Park with our little reunion with 95
that
and
was fantastic.
the 2007 guys, and then the incumbent box. And it was a wonderful experience. Some guys we left off with, as though we had never been apart.
Yeah. I saw you. The camaraderie.
Some guys, sadly enough, sorry boys, you have aged badly.
Well, thank you for that invite, because it was, yes, I spent a great time with you. In the pictures, people are thinking, but that one little, he didn't play rugby. Well, I did play rugby. I played for Jeppe Boys, under 15.
Yeah, just so all the listeners know, when we had the entire group photo before we went out onto the field, right in the middle was Brian.
Was little Brian Mitchell.
The only non-rugby player there occupying the space.
You know, it was actually lacking. I wasn't going to talk about that, but you just reminded me. When I got off the bus with you, Oaks, and obviously you Springbok guys are all legends, and the crowd were there, James Bullet, and I was walking next to you, and they're like, "There's Brian as well." So it was actually quite nice. James, your achievements, wow. 76 caps for Transvaal, you played for the Falcons, you played for the Cats, you played for the Bulls, 43 Springbok caps, I mean, absolutely amazing. You were part of the 95 World Cup winning team. Nickname Bullet Dalton, where does the nickname come from?
So that's, everyone asks me, but obviously hence the question.
Yeah.
So when Kitch Christie took over, which he classified and termed it as a hospital pass to take over at Transvaal, when Louis Late had obviously in his hostile manner got rid of one of the coaches, I think it was Harry Viljoen, Kitch Christie came in as an assistant coach from Northern Transvaal. And that night, training us, he obviously didn't have names or knew everybody, and he found it appropriate to nickname me Bullet. So there wasn't anything that was significant or that led into it. Was just...
and you became Bullet.
Yeah, and listen, there are worse nicknames.
No, actually, well, now, if you look back now, it suits you. Because you are James Bullet Dalton. Yeah. I saw even in Ellis Park. I mean, they don't even call you James.
Yeah.
They're like, Bullet.
Listen, I've been called worse things, Brian, by my
I'm sure. By your ex-wife.
But no, Bullet I can live with. I'm totally happy with that nickname.
James, where did you grow up, for the viewers that don't know your background?
So I was born in Johannesburg at the Mount Mary there in the top.
Yes, then Kensington.
Kensington, yeah. And then went to Kensington South, which became Eastgate Primary, and then went to Jeppe Boys, and had a wonderful school career there. I was speaking to my partner the other night, and she was telling me how she hated school. I said, I love school. I couldn't wait to get there.
Well, you mentioned me, Jeppe Boy. You made a lot of cluck at Jeppe. I want to talk to you about some of those stories. And then, when did you start? Because you never actually competed in a boxing fight, even though you had a lot of boxing fights on the rugby field.
I think I'm more well known for my fights.
You're well known for your fights and your rugby. Because with the boxing, obviously boxing was a big part of your training. Because I remember you training all the years there by Nicky Ness. You and I had a few sparring sessions, which I think I got the better of you. I'm not sure. Did I?
We'll go down now. You bullied me.
So we actually did, for the viewers that we've sparred before too, and James was a boxer. He didn't compete as a boxer, but at the Nicky Ness amateur gym, you trained with all the youngsters there.
Look, boxing, I mean, I've always enjoyed the physical aspects of the physical sports. Boxing, obviously my rugby, which I've stood out for. And then currently I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I've got a purple belt in that.
Oh, really?
So I enjoy the combat type style sports. And then boxing for me, Brian, was a big part of what I believe was part of my success as a rugby player. After our training sessions, I would go there to the Boyson's Boxing Club. Train with Nicky, used to make me do like 10, 2-minute, 3-minute rounds, depending on
boxing fitness is tough.
I mean, it's like it was next level. I mean, Kitch Christie has always been known as one of the custodians of fitness. I mean, he set the benchmark in terms of Springbok and rugby fitness.
Okay.
To go in and then doing the rugby, the boxing training after that. I mean, I was just on the next level. I could play easily two games back to back.
So you were one of the fittest. That's why you were such a good rugby player.
Thank you. Also, what it did, it made me lose that fear of contact. Because boxing, you had the confidence because you knew you were so punch. It's easy to punch, but now you've got to move. So it just made you a little bit more comfortable with that contact, that impact point. And then obviously, I mean,
Did you ever actually consider being a boxer? Because you've had you're famous for street fighting. Well documented. It goes as soon as James Dalton has a half a street fight, even if it's not your fault.
Sorry, this interview's over.
The funny part is, even if it's not, if you and I have to get in a street fight with anybody, and especially your lifestyle. It's the first thing they say is James Dalton caused trouble. And probably half the time it wasn't even, maybe it was you most of the time. But, it goes viral and they blame you. And the viewers, the fans loved your street.
Look, Brian, everybody likes, people thrive. That's why you've got newspapers. Everybody thrives on talking about somebody else.
Yeah, especially if they're well known.
Yeah, and it's the thrill of, being able to sit in your office and say, well, look, it's somebody else's bad night or their demise or their fall.
But if you're well known, they want to have a go. Did you win most of the street fights?
Yes, Brian, undefeated.
So you and I both undefeated. Well, you and I were involved in a bit of drama in our time too, on the same side, by the way.
Listen, guys, on that note, we were talking how Brian used to bully me as a kid, and you were actually one of my legends, and Brian taught me, and thank you.
Thanks,
you taught me a hell of a lot in my younger days. I was coming up through the ranks, and one night very arrogant and was asked for a signature, and I had my nose out of joint, and Brian actually gave me a talking to. He said, hey, one thing you always remember is your fans that make you.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So, and I'm still today, now and again, I have that thought when I sign signatures, to have that patience because of those wise words.
Yeah, thank you.
But
it's nice that you
so my story is, sorry, Brian.
Okay.
So, I mean,
what
we know about load shedding now is like, you don't even say that word because everyone just gets badly with load shedding.
Yeah.
So that night when we still had that sparring session, there was load shedding. Remember, we got the cars parked.
And we put the lights on.
We put the headlights on.
And you were nagging me to spar with you. And I think we'd had a few drinks. And we had the aircon on.
We started off at the bar having lots of drinks. And then we went and bullied each other.
Yeah.
And then we went back to the bar and we were cuddling each other. Totally.
And then you realised sparring with a professional boxer is not so easy.
No, listen, Brian, you weren't forgiving on me that night. I have to say that.
Well, and afterwards we made up and we drank again.
And yeah, we are.
James, Jeppe Boys, so you're a legend at Jeppe Boys. Everybody knows who James Dalton is at Jeppe Boys. I mean, I was there 10 years before you, and I'm also proud to be a Jeppe Boy. Tell us a Jeppe Boys story or two. I mean, if the people want to. The one story I even wanted to ask you, even though I'm your friend, that I heard that while you were playing, the parents and they were shouting, and you ran off the field and started whacking somebody in the audience. Is that not a true story? Okay, you tell us whatever.
No, you sound like a typical news reporter.
Yeah. That's my job now as well.
No, look, there are many stories. I mean, so let's start I'll end off with that
Okay.
version. So there's the Dalton corner there that on the Jeppe field.
Yeah.
That's where I was synonymous. There was scored many a try.
Great.
And then there's an urban legend about there's some tower, I don't even know about this tower,
Yeah.
where I apparently went and hid. And still today, there's my Jeppe Boys first team rugby jersey up there. And now and again, they actually...
Is it there?
No.
Oh, it's not
Unfortunately.
Oh, they think it. Oh, that's the urban legend.
And now, still today, they find now and again kids or schoolboys who actually go try and
Looking for James
to
Dalton
see
jersey.
if that jersey does exist.
Yeah.
But let's leave that open.
Yeah,
For the imagination. And then
So what is that story? Sorry, interrupting you. I'm just thinking as well. This story is definitely true. There was a fight, and then you were involved in a fight, and the next week the first team was supposed to play, and you were suspended or you couldn't play.
Yeah,
They said they refused to play.
So we were scheduled to play Athlone Boys, and then the school banter, the schoolboys before that.
Yeah.
So from the Athlone camp, there was a flanker there. He thought he was the dawn of the new coming. He was Athlone as a rugby player.
Okay.
And he was now letting rumours fly that he was going to sort me out and teach me a lesson. And it was a very physical, robust game. I mean, lack of intervention from the referee. And those days it wasn't as governed and ruled as it is today in terms of dirty play. And it just got out of control. And a brawl broke out, and this same flanker hit Brent Moyle, who also was a Springbok,
I remember the name.
for Jeppe, a prop. And then all hell broke loose, and this flanker then was in my eyesight, and I...
Was it at Jeppe?
At Jeppe, and then I smoked him. And then Stu, as life and form would have it, my headmaster, Mr. Quell, and I never had a good rapport.
Yeah.
No relationship whatsoever. But from that distance, I don't know if he had binoculars or the new generation of glasses today.
Yeah.
But he blamed me. He said unequivocally, it's Dalton's fault, and he suspended me. And I didn't play in the Cares Jeppe 100 years centenary for Jeppe.
Yes, and Cares was our biggest rival.
And then funny enough, Cares beat Jeppe that day at Cares, and then we had a follow-up game at Cares. And I actually made a try-scoring tackle. And then also biffed my opposition at the same game. And then Jeppe won that game. So it was...
Great, so it's good.
So there was a sad bit of tears, but it all ended in joy, like most things.
It ended well, and you became a legendary name, legendary, well done rugby player for Jeppe Boys. And Cares was always our rival.
No, listen, Cares is a massive...
Still is, eh?
It's like Furman, in this side of the world.
Yeah.
And it's good, schoolboy rugby needs those big derbies. It's healthy for the game and healthy for the schoolboys.
Yeah.
It's something to attach to and aspire to, whatever your sport might be.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, let's talk about your Springbok rugby career. I mean, that's much more legendary than in your school rugby. So 43 caps for South Africa as a Springbok. Incredible. Why only 43? Because you were brilliant.
Brian, it's... well, the facts are, we only used to play 6 tests a year in those times. It's not like now you play in 14, 16 test matches a year.
Okay.
So you only played 6 test matches, then you would have 2 tours. So you'd have a overseas tour in the first quarter of the year, and then towards the end of the year, like a summer tour. And then that would be maybe 6 test matches at best. So it was first of all the amount of test matches. And then I just, I got to a stage, and I, embarrassingly enough, had to say it, at 26 when I played.
Did you suffer injuries?
No, I was very blessed because of my training. I've suffered more injuries from my jiu-jitsu.
Okay, really?
That's
interesting, eh?
And, I actually stopped playing rugby when I was 26, when I had 34 caps.
Yes.
I stopped for 2 years and went and, as they would affectionately say, go and break shit. I broke shit for 2 years.
You retired and became a hooligan.
Yeah, and then I, joined a motorbike gang.
I didn't even know that.
Joined the Hells Angels.
Oh, were you part of the Hells Angels?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, there's things about you that I don't even know.
And then I met my first and only wife, and she said, "But listen, now, weren't you a really good rugby player?" I said, "Well, Yeah, I actually was.
Yeah.
Then she said, well, why don't you make a comeback? And then I made a comeback. And the same year I played, my comeback year, I played for the Boks again under Rudolf Strowley. And then I played my last test against Australia in the Tri-Nations just before the 2003 World Cup. And I went to Rudolf and I said to him after that, I said, that test, I said, Rudolf, I think I'm done with rugby. He said, are you mad? We've got a World Cup coming up. I said, look, first of all, World Cups and I don't go well together. And I said, for Rudolf, I think I've outgrown my environment. You know, I don't have those butterflies, I don't have that heartbeat.
So weren't you playing in the next World Cup?
No. You know, look, I won Tri-Nations. I played for 2 World Barbarians. I played for World 15 at the age of 21. So in terms of that, in my category, my class of generation, it's all relative. So, but I'm going to speak for myself. Is, you know, I played in the generation of Keith Woods, Federico Mendes, Phil Kearns, Sean Fitzpatrick, and myself. And you know, at any given stage, I was number 1 in the world against them.
No, you definitely were one of South Africa's greatest hookers.
Like to pat myself on the back.
Honestly, I mean, I'm a Uli Schmidt fan other than a James Dalton family. I love Uli Schmidt, but I think you were absolutely amazing. I think you were definitely one of our greatest hookers of all time. And you were world class. I wanted to ask you, which we spoke about in the car, but I'd like the viewers to know. So those years, was there no contacts overseas for you? Why didn't you go overseas like the guys do today? Was there no bucks like it is today?
Right now, I mean, I think it was more about we weren't exposed to social media in the world as we are today, the generations today. You know, the South African, tip of Africa, small man syndrome. So, you know, we're rather more comfortable.
We both got that.
Not short man syndrome.
Just small man syndrome.
So you were more inclined to want to stay where your comfort zone is. But to put it into perspective, so if I applied myself for an hour on the field in South Africa, I would get R1. And if I did the same overseas, I would have also got R1.
Yeah, you'll get 20 rand.
As opposed to if I applied the same hour abroad, I'd get 20 rand. So there wasn't that attraction.
So
I was a rock star, in any case. Well, I go and try and reinvent myself overseas.
You were a superstar in South Africa, so okay, well, thanks. That answers that. And then, which I found amazing, you won 35 out of your 43 tests for the Boks, was winning. So that must have been great. Who was your toughest opponent and why? Did you have the toughest opponent?
I'd say, well, look at myself in the mirror, it was myself.
I was listening to my words.
No, look, I think as a team, my toughest opponent certainly would be and is and remains New Zealand.
Always.
Just for that whole aura, that all black outfit, that haka.
Did you get nervous when they sang the haka?
Yeah, no,
you probably wanted to build it.
But you know what? It was more inspiring to know that you're part of this and you're good enough to stand opposite that legendary, that iconic war dance, because that's what it is, and they challenge you to war. So for me, it was, the generation of Craig Dowd, Olo Brown, and Fitzpatrick, who was really a tough contender. And then, guys like Keith Wood, who was physical, but he was a...
And your favourite player?
Geez,
that you played with this?
No, but to come to mind as a kid was Ray Mort.
Ray Mort,
and
he's such a good man as well.
Yeah. He's a proper gentleman of the game and a proper man of the public.
Great man,
real.
And still keeps in such great physical condition.
Rob Lowe, and then obviously Uli. I looked up to Uli tremendously, and he inspired me. In fact, he was the guy who probably made me, the player I was and am. And he was one of my kids brought him from Northern Transvaal to Transvaal. And I thought, okay, right, it's my time now. Now they bring one of the best hookers in the world. I thought, there we go. I'm going to sit on the bench for 2 years. And the rivalry was so healthy that it just came to a point where, I think I just put too much pressure on Uli. And, he was never a guy that was going to be number 2. So, he retired gracefully.
Well, great, you've had such a wonderful career. We can talk about it the whole day. Tell us quickly, 95 World Cup story. I mean, you must have told the story a million times since 95. Peter Hendricks and yourself, the fight broke out against Canada. Peter Hendricks got into a fight, you ran up to help or ran up to hit the guy. What did you do?
Brian, whatever way you look at it, I was the youngest. I was first man to fall in that incident. For the public that wouldn't know is obviously the laws those days were interpreted as the third man coming in would be seen as the aggressor.
Okay.
And then to my detriment, and sometimes I still have like a bone to pick with poor Mornay du Plessis, who was our manager at the stage, is Doc Late offered me legal representation. And which I said, look, let's rather handle this from the good spirit and will of rugby, which I then listened to, being the youngster. Went into the hearing, and then there were two French adjudicators with the South African. They asked me my interpretation of the incident, and they never made use once of the interpreter. So they actually couldn't have understood a word I said to them. And what the worst part was, they played the footage in slow-mo. Now, we all know when you play something in slow-mo, it just looks a lot more dramatic and not in your favour. So, as much as that was a low point for me, I was very successful thereafter. And I was...
Was it heartbreaking for you to know that you're only playing 2 games?
It was soulless.
It must have been. Because you would have been the hooker in the semi-final. You would have been that guy in the final in 95, holding up the trophy with France. You still got awarded though.
Yes,
for being part of the 95 World Cup.
Absolutely.
And deservedly so.
Yeah, look, they were gracious enough, and thanks to Kitch again, I got my World Cup win, I got my World Cup medal.
Yeah,
and Chris Rousseau, him and I now, funny enough, hated each other. I wouldn't even sit at the same table as him. Him and I are now good friends.
Okay, good.
And, and I was glad, for my country, I was glad. I was sad for myself. But that also came and passed,
But I'm glad you still got awarded with the World Cup medal and all that. You deserved it. As I said, my opinion, you would have been the hooker in that main team.
Well, the nice thing, Brian, is I went to PE about 2 years ago, and it was nice to see that I was last man standing, because they have flattened Book Erasmus.
Oh, okay.
But I was still standing.
James, just quickly, before I want to talk boxing to you as well, it's, your career is so great, you could talk for hours. Your thoughts on the 2023 World Cup? I mean, can South Africa and the Bokke win it for the 4th time?
Look, it would sound biased, but absolutely, Brian. We just
have a chance.
I mean, we could field 2 test teams that on any given day could beat.
Can we beat the All Blacks?
Yeah, no, definitely. Look, we're going to have to be strategically good against them, as everybody knows. But our rugby is in such a good place. It's so strong.
It's nice to know.
Yeah, no, and normally you'd find with a number 1 choice and the guy sitting on the bench, there's a bit of daylight between the two. We don't have that daylight between our top props or our top hookers, our locks. They're equally as good.
Okay, great.
But depending on the team that you select them for. But we are incredibly strong.
Fantastic. So we've got a good chance. There you heard it from the great James Dalton that our 2023 Springbok Rugby squad
Go Bokke!
Can win it for the 4th time, which is starting in the next week or 2.
Absolutely.
James, thanks for being our guest today. You're going to promote Rodney Berman from Golden Gloves has invited you next week again to be our special guest at the boxing on the 2nd of September at Empress Palace. World Sports Betting Supersport bringing you the show live. So if you want to see James Dalton and meet your hero, come to the boxing on the 2nd of September. You're going to be our guest there as well in a fantastic boxing tournament. So we look forward to that in a week's time. Palace Nights is what the tournament's called. As I said, at Empress Palace. 6 fantastic bouts. I'll just breeze through them. Brandon Tyson fights Javante Koopman in a big South African junior middleweight title fight.
Great fight.
It's a big, locals always like it. It's the biggest domestic fight. Your thoughts quickly on that fight?
Yeah, look, I mean, they both batters, they brawlers, but it's a nice blend. The boxing card is a nice blend of a world title, a local title, and
Ricardo Magic Man Malajika fighting for a world title.
There we go, Brian, and I believe he's one of your fighters. We talk about the fighters. But it's what's wrapped, it's the total package, having yourself who's ploughed himself back into boxing is amazing. My good friend Rodney Berman and Golden Gloves, that without them, boxing would be worse off.
Yeah.
So well done on you guys, and obviously loyal guys like Empress Palace and your sponsors, Under Armour, World Sports Betting. It all combines for a good evening.
We're a good team, and we're happy for many years.
Absolutely.
So Marajika fights Munoz from Argentina for the world title. So I'm putting my money on Marajika.
I think I'm going to do the same.
Game of Ricardo Marajika to win that IBA Junior Bantamweight world title next week on the 2nd of September. And then the main fight, the charismatic, we spoke about it early on. Lovely to watch Raw Knap, the way he places his punches. He fights Przemysław Jesk from Poland. How do you see that fight?
Look, I'm a Raw Knap fan. I like his tenacity. He's aggressive. He's calculated. He's conditioned. He's my money's on him. I'm going to be biased, from that point of view. So I'm a Knap man.
Fantastic. Well, that's the tournament on the 2nd of September. And then last but not least, the guy that's been carrying the flag for South Africa, the golden boy of South African boxing, Kevin Lerena. I'm sure you're a fan of Kevin Lerena's like most people are. He's really the guy out there that's making things happen. You've been watching Kevin Lerena?
Kevin, to me, is one of the role models of boxing in South Africa. Absolutely. And I can understand why Golden Gloves is associated with him. Even his entire team, with Peter Smith as his trainer, that whole family have been loyal to boxing and to the sport. And, Kevin's done incredibly well for himself, and I'm sure he's going to continue doing well. And it's good for individuals who do well in sport, because it's good for our country and the image of our country. Yeah. So to all the fighters that are going to be representing themselves individually or their country on the night and going forward, even from Lerena's point of view, I wish him everything of the best and much respect to him for what he's achieved so far.
Thanks, James. Of course, Kevin Lerena doesn't fight on this card.
Correct.
But it hasn't been announced yet, but he's fighting in a big tournament this year in South Africa at Empress Palace as well. So thank you, James Dalton, the legendary hooker, Bullet Dalton, the Springbok hooker, for being our special guest. We had a lekker chat about all your street fights and your boxing fights.
Yeah, it's,
Did you ever think of becoming a boxer?
I mean, well, from today. So when I'm here next week, have you got a fight for me?
Yeah, we will. No, because you love boxing so much on the rugby field and off the rugby field.
I'm
sure you would have loved to be a boxer.
I've just got a few pieces of the puzzle missing inside.
I think you'll actually turn out to be quite a good boxer. So James Dalton, our special guest, from me, Brian Mitchell, thank you for watching.
Thank you.